Hello, professionals, high achievers, and leaders. Welcome back to the Optimized Career Solutions YouTube channel. This month, the month of October, we are talking all about interviews. Why are we talking about interviews this month in October? Well, I will tell you why. October is a hot month for interviewing and hiring. When it comes to the year, we have a couple of months that are really, really hot for interviewing and hiring. At the beginning of the year, January, February, March, it gets hot at the beginning of the year, and then it kind of cools off in the summer. And then right after the kids go back to school, September and October are really hot before it cools off in the months with the holidays. So if you are in a job search, or if you are considering going into a job search, I highly recommend check out some of our older videos where we talk about the traditional job search, a strategic and authentic job search, and even a hybrid method. We are every single week popping out a podcast episode on Wednesday and a supplementary YouTube video on Thursday. So this week and throughout the month of October, we are talking about interviews. So yesterday we dropped an episode where we talked about the elevator pitch. That's exciting. If anyone has ever asked you, so tell me about yourself, and you sat there and said, ooh, I don't know what to say, and you either don't know what to say or you found yourself talking 10 minutes later, you definitely want to go and check out yesterday's episode. It's on every major streaming podcasting platform, and it's on this YouTube channel. You can check out the playlist, the Career Advancement Academy playlist, and you can check it out. But today we are going to be talking about one of the most critical parts of interviewing, which is answering interview questions. So let's start out. We are going to be answering interview questions. So how do you answer interview questions? Well, today we are going to be talking about one of the most popular methods and frameworks for answering interview questions. It is the S.T.A.R framework. S.T.A.R. And that stands for situation, task, action, and results. The reason why we are talking about the S.T.A.R method is because it is one of the most popular methods for answering interview questions. Another way that you can think about this, and this is my sort of framework, is a problem, solution, and result framework wrapped up in the story bow. So this is the way that we are going to practice and really learn about answering interview questions. In fact, according to a career builder survey, 62% of hiring managers favor candidates who provide specific examples during interviews rather than generic answers. This is why it's so important for us to provide specific examples when we are answering interview questions. And the S.T.A.R method, or the problem, solution, result method, helps us tell our stories when it comes to providing specific examples. Not only that, but when you tell stories, it helps us be a lot more memorable. It's so much more memorable when we tell a story that starts with, when I was here and I was doing this, I had this problem and this is what I implemented and here were the results, instead of saying, sure, I could do that. Yeah, I've done that before. Right? No one's going to really remember that. So when we are answering interview questions, we want to remember these frameworks, and we want to really make sure that we are leaving a lasting impression, and people remember stories. So we really want to make sure that we're using these frameworks. So when outlining and using this framework, what I highly recommend, and I have this available in our courses, which you can find at www.optimizedcareers.com. We have an interview prep pack and bonus salary negotiation and offer negotiation. In that interview prep pack, I think it's like $150 for the whole thing. You get all of my best practices, all of this, plus a 20-page interview guide, plus all of the great help tactics, strategies, and an interview tracker where you can really track out all of your interviews and have a tab where you can start putting your stories into the S.T.A.R formula. However, if you don't have access to that, that's okay. What I highly recommend is putting into an Excel document or in some sort of chart an S.T.A.R and a bonus fifth column, which we'll talk about in a second. And you can put an L there for now. But what we're going to do is we're going to take your stories and we're going to break them into these specific sections for S, T, A, and R, and then L, which we'll talk about in the end. So the S.T.A.R formula. What I highly recommend to get started is really think about 7 to 8 of your stories that you feel really, really proud of. If you've worked with a resume writer like myself or someone that you're really excited about, hopefully they have put your resume into an achievement-based resume. And I want you to pick out your 7 to 8 most impressive achievements that you look at your resume and you go, oh my God, I'm impressive. And then I want you to really start putting them in here. Now, when it comes to the situation and task, I want you to make sure that you're being concise. Dedicate the majority of your response to the action that you took and the result that came from it. So for the situation, that S part, really we want you to set the stage or set the story or set the situation, right? The reason why we want to do this is because it's going to be very overwhelming if you have 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experience and all of a sudden you just start telling a story or a task and you said, well, once I was tasked to do this. And you're like, well, where? What company were you in? What role were you in? Did you have a team that you were leading, right? You want to set the stage. The reason for this is because when you set the stage, instead of, throwing out a story and hoping that someone can catch up, you're literally giving them a seat in the car with you so that they can ride along with you along this story. So it can be as simple as going, when I was the director of sales at ABC organization leading this type of team. When I was the customer service representative at XYZ organization. When I was the project manager at LJK organization. I was leading a cross-functional team across marketing, sales, and operations. Okay? It can be as simple as that. But now you're helping them figure out, how long ago was this? When was this? What organization was it? Was it a big organization? Was it not? And they can help fill in the details by looking at your resume, which they've already looked at. And if they want extra details, they can ask, okay? We're going to keep it really short and concise. The task portion is you're going to literally just describe what the problem was or what the task was that you had to accomplish. So for this, it could be, when I was at ABC organization, I was the director of sales and I was leading a global team of 20 people across Asia and America. I was tasked with driving sales by 10% by the end of the year. I was tasked with solving the problem of increasing our collaboration across the Americas and the Asia teams. We had a problem with retention across our Asia team compared to our America team, right? That was that, and this was the problem, okay? When I was a customer service rep at XYZ organization, I was tasked with figuring out why our customers in the West Coast were returning our products more often than people in our East Coast, right? Whatever it is. When I was a project manager at LJK organization, I had a project to solve this problem, collaborating with teams from marketing, sales, and operations, right? So simple as that, okay? It's not going to be that extensive. We just want to set the team. And the reason why is because if the listener, if the hiring manager, the recruiter is trying to play catch up, trying to figure out where you are by the time you got to the goods of your story of, here's what I did, here's how I innovated, here's how I solved, they're going to miss this part when their brain is trying to catch up to where you are. So you want to do them a favor, okay? The other thing is we want to make sure that your action and the result has some measurability to it, right? So I was here, I was tasked with doing this, or we had this problem. So here's what I did. I implemented a solution involving teams from this team and this, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to do this. The reason why is because I estimated that it would have a result of this. And once I implemented this, it did have that result and even more, right? This is the reason why we want to do this, is because it's a very easy story to follow, because it solves something. It completes a loop in our brains, right? And we want to do that for our listener. The reason why it's so difficult for us as interviewees is because we were there living that story. The problem is that the interviewer was not there living the story, so we have to help them out. So another story with the project manager, right? When I was a project manager at LJK organization, I was tasked with implementing a project of implementing a CRM system. And I had to use a cross-functional team across marketing, sales, and operations. The problem is that I didn't have my own dedicated team. And so this was an initiative that was set down from senior leadership because we did not have a CRM system that really showed the transparency of to how our customers were coming into the organization, what the life cycle was, and how we can really increase the ROI of each and every one of our customers. And so what I did is I actually sourced 3 different vendors of different CRM systems that we could use. I got buy-in from each of the teams, the sales, the marketing, and the operations team, and we all concluded that one of the systems would be the best for all of the needs of the different teams. I was able to really, because I got buy-in from each of these teams, the cross-functional team that I was working with was a lot easier to work with, and we were able to really meet deadline because I had secured that buy-in. Over the next 6 months, I had created this roadmap to ensure that we got the CRM system implemented within the next 6 months. The great news is because I had pulled 2 members from each of this team, myself and 6 other members across the next 6 months working with this vendor did get that CRM implemented within that time frame and under budget. The great news is because I had secured that buy-in up front with those stakeholders, we were able to really get this done and implemented. And not only that, we were able to secure wins and transparency into the customer journey, but we were able to also get additional functionality implemented because we were aware of the needs of each of the departments. The result is not only did we get it in time, we were able to increase transparency into the customer journey and to the data, but all 3 teams really were bought into this, and that increased user adoption rate far exceeded what we had anticipated at the beginning, which decreased our training time after we implemented. That is a story I just made up off the top of my head, so I don't know if it's true or not from anyone that I talked to, but what I want to hear from you in the comments and let me know, was that an engaging enough story that you felt bought in? Could you see myself, or me rather, going across these different teams, sourcing a vendor, getting buy-in, all of this other stuff? Was that an engaging story that you remember? Now, here's another way that I said it. I could have said it. Yeah, absolutely. I've implemented a CRM team before. I've gotten stakeholder buy-in. Sure. Yeah, I've worked with different teams, marketing, sales, operations. I've done that before. Yeah, I've implemented a CRM. Sure, I could do that for you. See the difference between saying and just answering the question of, have you ever implemented a CRM system, or have you ever worked cross-functionally, or have you ever gotten stakeholder buy-in, right? Any of those questions could be answered with the story I just told by slightly changing it. And that's the benefit of having these STAR stories formulated first and almost memorized and known so well within yourself, is that you can tell it, and you can almost tell it in slightly different ways to answer different types of questions. The other really great additional thing is that if you can use emotion to tell your stories, these STAR formula stories, that can take it to the next level. So if I had told that story and I said, here's why it was so exciting that we were able to get it done, is because at first we had no insight into the customer journey at all. When I was able to get buy-in from all three teams, not only were we able to knock off our deadline by a whole month, but we were able to get this implemented, add additional functionality that increased the transparency into click-through rates and open rates, but we were able to customize the CRM system to include additional training documents for our sales team that increased our conversion rates too. So not only did we increase the transparency, but we were able to bring cohesion and collaboration from our team, but we generated additional revenue, which was such a win for not only myself as the project manager, but for all three of these teams. And it was such an exciting moment for the whole team together. And there were some lessons learned too about how doing that work on the front end really paid off on the end, or the back end, right? So why is this important, and why am I telling you this now? Is because I want you to be as memorable as possible in your interview, because your competition who isn't watching this video, it's very difficult to get excited. It's difficult to get past your nerves in an interview and to tell your story in a way that leaves you memorable and conveys emotion. And we as humans, we are emotional creatures. And if you can connect emotionally with your interviewer and share your excitement about the amazing things that you've done, you're going to leave a lasting impression. Here are some pitfalls that come with the STAR formula. A lot of times, even with structure, even with this framework, the candidates can veer off track. They can get rambly. You can give incomplete answers. You might be too stuck on that situation, that task. You might forget the result, which is the most important part, right? A survey from Glassdoor, again, indicates that 29% of interviewers lose interest when candidates are not concise. And so, how do you stay concise? We really recommend that you keep this under 2 minutes. Keep each answer under 2 minutes. 2 to 3 minutes is your sweet spot. Do not go over 3 minutes. 2 minutes is going to be the best, right? I always recommend concluding with the result, highlighting it as much as possible. And I'm going to talk about that L in just a second. And I also recommend practicing. Practice makes perfect. Bruce Lee has a quote, and I'm going to butcher it, so I'm going to hopefully do this right, where he says, "I don't fear a man who's done 10,000 kicks one time. I fear a man who's done one kick 10,000 times." And so I highly recommend get 7 to 8 stories, write them out in the formula, practice them, then bullet point them and practice them again, and use your technology to your advantage. Record yourself practicing your STAR stories and watch it back. And I know it's going to be uncomfortable, but this is the best way for you to learn and grow and improve. Highly recommend to have friends, family, a coworker, a previous coworker, not your current coworker, or a mentor or a coach ask you questions and see how you can use these stories in a way where you can twist them and change them for different answers, or different questions for different answers. Hire a coach, get a resume writer if you are unsure and you don't feel like you have good stories. The final thing, and I know I've been teasing this along the way, the next way you can take the STAR stories to the next level is, once you've gotten the STAR stories down and they're compact, they are concise, you feel really proud, is to add an L to them. So a STARL, I guess. What you want to add is the lesson learned. So this is really good for leadership type positions, and for types of questions where you're going to be asked for a lesson learned, like tell me about a time where you failed, or tell me about a time where things went wrong. So this might be a way, say we're going to use the same project manager one, right? When I was working at this company as a project manager, working cross-functionally across these teams, I was tasked with implementing this type of system. So what I did is I created an audit and I got stakeholder buy-in to ensure that we were creating or implementing the right system for the needs that we needed. And the result is that we implemented that system, but I made a mistake. I only really focused on these three systems, these three departments, but I did not take into account supply chain. And so what happened is that after we implemented our CRM system, we had to implement a workaround in order to get our supply chain and logistics program to integrate with the CRM, which I did not take into account. And so the lesson that I learned from this is that when doing an audit, when doing a systems implementation, not only do you have to take into account the departments that it will touch, but you have to take into account all the systems and all the processes that it will be touching, because there are going to possibly be hidden workflows that you're not aware of. So really zooming out and doing that full audit before doing just the immediate audit before making an implementation or a recommendation was one of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn. And ever since then, I make sure that I do a full organizational audit and a departmental audit before I do any systems implementation. This has saved me time and money because of that lesson that I learned at that time. That's going to be a key thing when it comes to any stories where you've made a mistake or you had to learn a lesson and maybe the hard way, right? Equipping yourself with this technique, refining it through practice, and stepping into your next interview with confidence so that your stories shine is going to help you leap throughout your career, because this framework is going to be critical for you, not just in interviews, but helps you be concise and an effective communicator throughout the rest of your career. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for next week when we talk about everything to do with recruiters. How do you handle those interviews? What questions do you ask? How do you handle their questions? We're going to make sure that you are equipped every step of the way. Make sure if you like this video, if this was valuable, tell me in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Have you used the STAR method? Have you used the problem, solution, result method, which is basically the STAR method, just a little bit shorter? I want to hear from you. What are some of the toughest interview questions that you've ever gotten? Maybe it might come up in a future YouTube video. Thank you again so much for watching. Make sure that you like and subscribe. It really helps us out so that we can help more people. And any comment that you get, make sure to leave it. I will come back and respond as quickly as possible. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your week.